Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video talking about something you've probably seen in a lot of videos, however I haven't mentioned too much about, and that is these backup iron sights here from Aero Precision. Now these are all metal sights. They do flip up, so they're spring loaded, as you can see. They've just been riding back up pretty much on this SBR here with this BCM upper for probably 3 or 4 months now, and I had actually planned to do a video on these today anyway. However, I guess you could say fortuitously, the battery in my red dot died, so I was going to do some shooting with it today. Come to find out, the red dot died, so it became a perfect excuse to actually do the video on these backup iron sights. Now, as backups, I don't use them a whole lot. Obviously, my main go-to optic on this is this Primary Arms Advanced Microdot. However, I have had the opportunity multiple times to where I've actually had to organically go to these. The first time I really used them was during a American Rifleman carbine class with Spartan Training Concepts. The vast majority of the shooting I did was with this red dot. However, there were times where the rain would kind of obscure it to the point where I'd have to resort to these iron sights. And then obviously today that happened as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically talk to you about my thoughts on them, show you some of the features that I like and or dislike about them. And then we'll try to let you get to a point where you can decide if you want to get them for yourself for your next build. But at this point, I think I've done enough talking and not enough shooting. So let's go ahead and put some rounds down range. All right, let's take a closer look at these. At the beginning of the video, I already mentioned what was probably one of my favorite aspects of these sights, which is the fact that these are all metal. I'm going to take a little bit of time to put a lot of the specs over here on this side of the screen so you guys can see and make a breakdown a little bit more for yourself, as well as I'll have a link in the description to the product page for these so you can see pretty much all the details you could ever want to know. However, I'm going to try to do my best to break down, again, some of the high points that I think are worth knowing for these. So like I said, they are all metal, and they do spring up. Now, this is nothing revolutionary, let's be totally honest, when it comes to backup iron sights. However, there's one company in specific that makes very popular spring-up metal backup iron sights that I refuse to do business with. So the fact that Aero Precision is coming in with these is very appealing to me. Aero Precision is a company that I really like what they're doing. So I like that they are making something like this, so my money can go to a company that I think deserves it. Let's talk about the rear sight first. As you may be able to tell in there, if it'll focus in this general area, you do have 2 different apertures that you can flip up. You have a large aperture and a small, more precision aperture. We'll see how those come into play here in a minute when I do my accuracy testing between the 2 of them. Give you a sneak peek though. It's much easier for my eyes, at least, to focus with that small aperture. Obviously it's going to depend on who's the one doing the shooting. And then as you can tell by this big knob here, right there, it's all toolless adjustments. So you can make all your adjustments without having to worry about getting a little tool out or a multi-tool out and clicking that into place. You just click it with your thumb and you're off and running. As far as the front sight, you do have the hooded front sight, which is something I really like. I want as little things I want to prevent things from impacting that front sight as much as possible. One of the other really cool things about this front sight is it is actually compatible with standard AR-15 replacement front sights. So the one it comes with is fairly large. It's close to the mil-spec one on like the A2 front post that you're probably typically used to seeing. However, you can get those much finer ones if you want to be able to be more precise with these. Now, my goal personally on an 11.5-inch SBR isn't going to be maximum precision with these iron sights, especially since I do have an optic on here. These are just going to be for up close and personal stuff, making sure that I can do quick, more or less accurate engagements at close range if my optic goes down. And for that purpose, it's more than good enough with this front sight. Now, as far as the way these attach, it has a large Torx bit on both of them to actually secure it into place. And while the mounting components are metal, from what I understand, there have been a lot of people who have actually broken the clamping part of the base by over torquing that screw onto there. And is that something I've experienced? Absolutely not. Is it something that has apparently happened? Yes. So that is something to keep in mind. Don't over torque things, which coming from a crew chief is pretty hard for me to say, but try not to over torque things. Just use some blue thread locker, and you should be good to go as long as you decrease the screws first. And I haven't run into any issues, and I have probably, geez, if I had to guess, since I put these sights on there, I did 1,200 rounds in the American Rifleman class alone, and then since then I probably put at least another 500 to 600 rounds through it, so close to 2,000 rounds with these iron sights on here, and they're not coming loose or anything like that. So again, over torquing is not necessary. Now, one of the only downsides that I can think about these versus some of the other pop-up backup iron sights, or even just foldable backup iron sights on the market, is they do sit pretty high off your rail. They really sit pretty similarly to the Magpul polymer backup iron sights. So it's not terribly uncommon for your sights to sit up this far. However, I guess I've been kind of spoiled with the Magpul MBUS Pros. They're all metal ones. They don't flip up, but they do sit very, very flat, which is really nice if you're running a magnified optic to make sure that your ocular end is going to fit over this. Now, I haven't run into any issues with that myself because I'm not running any magnified optics on here, but actually I do have one really close, so let me grab that and we'll see if I can clear it with this rear sight. So I have a Vortex Diamondback HP 4-16 scope, been doing a bunch of testing with this, and a Midwest Industries quick disconnect mount. So let me go ahead and slap this on here and we'll see what kind of clearance we're dealing with. Yeah, so it's looking like that's not going to work. It's pushing it up off. Now, if I took the rear sight off first and maybe try to finagle it, I might be able to force it on there, but you'd probably have to throw that scope out pretty far forward in order to get it to clear it. So if you're running a magnified optic like that, that's going to run in this area, this may not be the backup iron sights for you, but that's going to be the case with a lot of them, unfortunately. You're going to have to find something that sits really, really flat, or not run a iron sight, which is not something I recommend on any gun that you plan on trusting your life to. That's just me personally. Obviously, you can make that decision for yourself. But if you're running a red dot, like this Primary Arms red dot, obviously that's not going to be an issue that you're going to run into. Definitely clears it. And they do sit low enough that your sight picture through your red dot is not going to be obscured at all. This is an absolute co-witness height, so my irons do co-witness with the dot when the battery is live, but when they're down, they don't get in the way at all whatsoever. So at this point, let's go ahead and see how well I can shoot with these iron sights. Gonna tell you right off the bat, again, it's not gonna be super pretty because my eyes suck with these iron sights, especially on the low contrast target that I'm shooting at. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and see how I do. All right, so in my infinite wisdom, I forgot to turn on my mic before doing this. So what I did is I had a paper target set up at 50 yards, this one in fact, and I did one group with the large aperture and then one group with the small aperture. I went ahead and left the red dot on since that's typically how I'm going to be shooting it if my dot dies anyway. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and see how I did. And because, again, there wasn't any sound while I was shooting those two groups, I'll just have it playing off on the side while I show you these. So for these, my points of aim were as near as I could get the extreme edges of this large diamond here in the middle, since that was the easiest thing for me to see at this distance. This group over here was with the large aperture, and as you can see, it's not super great, not for 50 yards at least. We're probably looking at right around 4 inches from edge to edge, so not super good. Once I put down the small aperture, it tightened up significantly, probably less than half the overall size with these 5 shots right there. Now, again, if you were to replace that front sight with a finer tip or something like that, that would probably help. Also, if your eyes didn't suck like mine do, that would also probably help. But nonetheless, you know, you can easily hit what you're aiming at that distance, especially if you have the small aperture. And then at close distances or man-sized targets, that large aperture will be nice and fast for you. Now, one thing I didn't mention earlier when I was going over the specs for these, something that may or may not be common sense for you, when you have the small aperture up in the up position, you can see that the large aperture is sticking out here in the back, so you can't actually fold it like that. However, if I had to choose one or the other that I'd rather have ready to go, it would be the large aperture, because if I have time where a target's far enough away that I'm going to switch to that small aperture, I have time to get that into place and adjust it. Whereas on the flip side, if I need these right away, I'm probably going to need that large aperture, so that's what I want it to go to right off the bat anyway. All in all, I think that these are a really great option if you're looking for a set of backup iron sights that's not going to totally destroy your budget. They are very affordable, and it's worth noting that I did pay for these myself, full retail, well, actually not full retail price. I got them from the Tannerite Sports Outlet, and they have a 10% discount for veterans, so 10% discount, but other than that, I paid full retail price. Like I said earlier, there is a competitor to these that is made by Troy Industries, but if you know how I feel about Troy Industries, they are never going to get any of my money ever again unless something drastic happens in their leadership, but I don't see that happening. Whereas Aero Precision is a company up here in the Northwest, really great people to work with, and they make really great products. In fact, I'm going to be doing, hopefully this weekend, I'm going to be doing a complete build series on an 18-inch rifle using all Aero Precision parts. So I'm kind of anxious to see how that turns out. If you want to see that, definitely subscribe to my channel. If you want to see more stuff like this, again, feel free to subscribe and hit that bell button so you get alerts anytime I put up a new video. I got a lot of videos on this little SBR here, including how I did this Viking-themed paint job using stencils from Mon Tactical, or now Freedom Stencils. But I'll probably have a link to that at the end of the video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and throw those in the comment section below. If you have experience with these Aero Precision iron sights, definitely let people know what your experience is. Getting as much input as possible is always a favorable thing. If you have recommendations for other iron sights, go ahead and throw those down there as well, again, unless they're from Troy Industries. But with that said, as always, I hope you're able to get something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.